Right, let's go. So we're up to the next sugya after all that excitement last week of basically we didn't make more progress last week. We did. We made lots of progress, but it was focused on a Tosfos. So like you and Karen, we are doing one Tosfos. So we did the same. We did the same. It was worth it. It was an exciting journey. And now it's time to move on. Although it's related, we haven't. The next sugya is very much connected. Connects to the previous one. So let's just recap a second. 1 second. Where are we? We're up to Hu Arva, which is on Lamed Beis on the base. Lamed Beis on base. Yeah, about 2/3 of the way down. So what we need to make sure that we understand is that because we'll need the conclusion of the previous sugya for this next one as well. That Rav Idi Bar Ovin paskened that we go like Rav Yosef when it comes to money, and with Rabba when it comes to land, right? When it comes to land, the way the Rashbam understands that is that he has a suffix as to how to pasken, whether the halacha is like Rav Yosef or the halacha is like Rabba. These were in both scenarios were the same in the sense there was a question over the forgery of the document. You remember this? The shtar was mezuyaf, or at least that was what was discovered. And the guy says, well, I guess it is forged, but the reason why I said it wasn't was because that's all I had. So I thought I better take that one. And the question, I better take this document, even though it's a forged document. And therefore the question was, and he could have got away with it. And therefore the question was, can we say, do we say a migoy? Since he could have said this, and he would have got away with it, and he didn't, he owned up, do we believe him? And that was a machlokes Rav Yosef and Rabba, whether you can rely on that migoy. And the Rav Idi Bar Ovin says, with Rashbam lands is, he's got a doubt as to who to pass him like. So he basically says both ways round, if you've got the land and you're in the land now, right, then you keep the land. And the fact that the guy wants to get it away from you, okay, it's not gonna help. And therefore it comes out that the halach is like Rabba. But basically we can believe the migoy. Not because he's sure that Rabba's right, but just because helping Rabba's view in the case of the land is the fact that you've got it. So the other guy wants to get away from you, he can't, because of the doubt in halacha. And Rav Yosef says no. Rav Yosef says that the suffix, in the case of money, it's the other way around. In the case of money, the migoy is coming to take away the money, right? As it, you owe me, saying you owe me money. And that he's the one who's trying to use the migoy to support that, right? Because he's claiming that this document is a valid shtar, which says that you owe me money. And on that we say again the same thing. So the money stays where it is. That's what the Rashbam learned. And Tosfos says there was no suffix in din at all. That's what we saw last time. There's no suffix. There's all sorts of problems with the Rashbam. If it's a suffix in din, then why should you start saying these, going in this direction? Tosfos learns that that basically you can say a migoy la'okmi momona, but not a migoy la'hotzi momon. So you can say a migoy to keep money where it is, to keep or property where it is, which is what's going on in the first case, the case of the land, yeah. Because who there is saying the migoy? The chap who wants to keep the land, the guy who's sitting in the land now, right? He's the one who's trying to use the document which was forged and everything else, right? To prove that it's his, and he wants to keep it, right? So that's a migoy. That's a migoy. What's called la'okmi momona, to keep money in your hand, and that's okay. But the second way around, the other way around, is a migoy la'hotzi. You want to use the migoy to be motzi momon, to take money away from someone else. You can't do that, right? You understand? You can't do that, right? That's a much more difficult thing to do. It's much harder to do that. That was the conclusion of the Gemora. Now the Gemora has a new case. Hahu arva. There was a certain orev. Now an orev is a guarantor. Okay, that's one orev is a guarantor, a guarantor is what it means. What it says, it says basically it guarantees to pay the loan. But it's not so simple how it works. Then this guarantor, the Omale Lelova, he said to the borrower, "Havli me'el zuzi de parati lemalve lavoch." Give me 100 zuz because I paid the malver for you. Right? I paid the malver for you. And here's the shtar. Here's the document. Here's the document that's proving that it is that I in fact did so. Now the problem here is that he's trying to use this. He's trying to get his money back from the borrower. He's saying, I paid this debt off for you. Now, the first question you have to ask yourself is why is he doing that? There's one thing to be if you're a guarantor for a loan, you don't generally speaking go off and pay the debt. There are rules around these things, right? Guarantors pay in certain cases and situations when there's no effectively essentially where the borrower can't pay. That's when you go to the guarantor. So why is it that the guarantor would ever, be in a position where he can go to the borrower and say, I paid the debt off? So Rashbam deals with that. It gives us two options. If you look at the Rashbam, it's the end of the last narrow line before the lines fill the whole Omid, right? I paid the malva back on your behalf. Kagoin Orev Kablan. It's, for example, it says it's an Orev Kablan. What's Orev Kablan? Orev Kablan is one who, Jeremy, you have to turn it off because of the heat. I'm going to have to, or at least we'll have to direct it a different way. I don't know. What? Okay, it's something. Would you mind? Press the button, the green. That's it. Oh, sorry. If we get freezing, we'll have to turn it on again. You're going Orev Kablan, all right. You go anyway. Orev Kablan. Orev Kablan is basically, right, an Orev who's accepted upon himself to pay. That's pretty much what it means. Kabel, to accept, right? So an Orev Kablan is someone who's basically taken upon himself committed to pay the debt, even though really he shouldn't. Really, he's the borrower, right? But he's committed to pay. Inami alternative Rashbam, you go in Sha'amar Malba B'Shas Halvor. Alternatively, the lender, the cases that the lender said at the time of the loan, Mimisha Eretz Efra, that I can extract payment from whoever I want. So Rashbam gives us two alternatives as to when you would ever be faced with a situation that a guarantor pays up without the borrower being approached first. Either because he's an Orev Kablan, which means it's a higher level of guarantorship, where he's basically accepted to pay, right? Or at least, again, I mean, I'm sure the exact rules of how an Orev Kablan works is discussed elsewhere. But basically, he's accepted the responsibility and he's agreed to do so to pay, and therefore the payment can be taken from him. Or there was a specification by the borrower, which was I can get money back from whoever I want. Okay. Now the question is, is he allowed to get his money back from the borrower? So you'd say, well, obviously he's got a document, but it's not so simple. Omalei, the borrower challenged him and said to him, Lav paratich, did I not pay you back? So he challenges him and says, I paid back this debt. So you're coming along with a document which says you owe me money, right? And I'm telling you, I paid you already. I paid you the 100 zuz that you paid on my behalf, right? On my behalf, right? And now what is he doing here? What is he doing here? What document is he presenting? What shtar is he presenting when he's claiming his money? Yeah, exactly. He's saying, exactly, that's right. He's coming to him and saying, you see this piece of paper? The lender gave this back to me when I paid it off, because that's what the lender does. The malva has the shtar, and when you pay off a debt, what happens? You take the document, or is he going to claim from you again? Yeah. So here the Orev comes along with the document and says to the borrower, you see, I paid it off, and here's the document to prove it. So it seemed to be a slam dunk case. It would seem to be open shut, right? There's nothing to talk about, right? Obviously, that means I paid the debt off. Borrower says, not true. I paid you back. I paid you back, right? And he says, so he challenges, so he says to him, Omar Le, he said to him, Lav Hodres Shokal Tinu. Did you not go and take it from me again? Now, in other words, the lender says, yes, it's true you paid me back, but then you took the money back from me, right? That's what the Orev says that. The guarantor says it's true that you paid me back, right, for the 100 zuz, but then you took the 100 zuz from me again. It seems like a bit of a strange machlokas, between the Orev and the lover, but the question is, how similar is it to the previous case? That's what the Gemora is really trying to analyze. That's what the Gemora is going to analyze.
You're saying that the Orev is claiming that the lover borrowed the 100 zuz from him.
No, the Orev is claiming that he's never the Orev. Okay, the first approach of the Orev is, here's the document, you owe me 100 zuz.
The lover
denies it.
I
The loan says, I paid you. Now, you would expect at that point for Orev to turn and say, no, you didn't. And then it says, yes, you did. No, you didn't. Yes, you didn't. That's not what happens. Yeah, the Orev at that point admits that it's true. Yes, it's true that you did pay me back, but then, right? But then you took it back again, the money. And therefore, you re-borrowed it again or whatever, right? And therefore, I'm using this document. At the end of the day, he says, right? At the end of the day, he says it's as if you don't pay me back because you still owe me the money. And that the borrower denied.
Why didn't you give him a new start?
Yeah. So that's exactly the question, really. That is the key question. Is it good enough for the Orev to have this piece of paper, right, in his hand? Yeah, because ostensibly it should be irrelevant because he's admitted. Yeah, that's what it should be.
Amigo, in other words, you could have said.
Yeah, effectively, that's the direction we're going to go in the sense that he's now got a piece of paper which he himself has now admitted is false. Well, it's not false, but it's not. Yeah, it's not on this loan. It wasn't on this loan exactly. It was on a previous loan, right? Okay, and therefore the question is he still has he got any has he got any is there any validity to what he's saying or not? Shelch Rabbi Birnbaum kamid Abaye. Rabbi Birnbaum sent this case to Abaye. He asked him, what's the halacha? Now, Abaye responds, Sholach le Abaye. Abaye said back to him, Mighty Boile, what question could Rabbi Birnbaum have about this case? Ho'iu de Omar, right? He himself says, Hilchos HaKavosei de Rabba Ba'ara, the Hilchos HaKavosei de Rabbi Yosef Bezuzi, the halachas like Rabba with land, and like Rabbi Yosef with money, the Heichel de Okmu Zuzi Lokmu. Wherever the money is, that's where it stays. So in other words, Rabbi Birnbaum seemed to ask a question and says, what's the halacha here? And Abaye says, why are you asking me? This is the same as the previous case. And you already paskened yourself in the previous case, X, Y, Z, right? Now the Rashbam is going to take us through this debate. So look at the Rashbam. Rashbam says, V'hoshtar is the first wide line. V'hoshtar, shtar shayla lemalvo alecha, the document which the lender had on you, v'echziruli, and he returned it to me, l'fisha parati chovo, because I pay back of his debt. You are obligated, you are tied, you are committed to me with this shtar, just like you were mashubad to him, just like you were committed to him, you are now committed to me. Because it's just because at the end of the day, that's what the document proves, that I paid it back. The borrower said to the guarantor, did I not pay you back? And he says to him, basically, yes, you did. But did you not retake the money from me again? As if you never paid it back. And the borrower does not agree to this. This is the fact the borrower doesn't agree. And on that he says, what's the halacha? It's not so comparable. It's not entirely comparable to the previous case, right? Where there was a document. The previous case, we had a shtar, and that shtar said that you owe me 100 zuz. The paskin on Rav Yosef, where we paskin like Rav Yosef, that you cannot take the money away, right? Also, the nevad, because there, the owner of the shtar, the person who's claiming the debt, admitted that he had another shtar, the nevad, and it was lost. And he took this one, so it should be something, right, to get something out, to try and, at least to try and get the money with it. And that case was completely forged in the previous case. It was never written for this loan. Okay, the previous case. It was a totally forged document, whatever. That's why the lender loses out to whatever the money is, that's where it stays. Right? And that's why you can't use that document. That's why he's Haskan Rav Yosef. And we said, yeah, forget it. You've got no access to this money. You want to try, you want to use a migoy to take the money out, a migoy lahoti, forget it. Forget it. We're not going with any logical arguments. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're presenting a forged document, forget it. We're not interested in what you're saying. Over here, here, the guarantor never had another document. This was the only piece of paper he ever had. This was the one he got from the lender when he paid off the debt. Okay. Therefore, Afal gavdu porinu, even though he paid off. Yeah, even though he paid off, that means the borrower paid him back. Given the hoda shoklinu, since he retook the money again, the borrower retook the money again. Ki'ilu lo porinu domi. It's as if he never paid him back. The chayav leboro, and he's obligated to repay again. So in other words, here you could present the argument ostensibly that the orev, the guarantor, is in a stronger position than the malva in the previous case. The malva in the previous case was coming along with a forged document, and the only reason we might think to let him get away with it is because of the migoy. Why would he lie? Since he could have just claimed the document, used the document as if it was kosher when really it wasn't, right? And he didn't, and he admitted that it wasn't, etc., etc. Therefore, you should give it to him. But here's better. Why? Because here, this was the only document the guarantor ever had. This was the document he got back from the malva, when he paid off the loan, right? So this was legitimately the document he would then use to get the money back from the borrower. This is all fine until now. The only thing that went a bit slightly twisted was the fact that he already used it to claim the money originally, but he didn't have another document. There was no other document. So it kind of made sense that he then used it again to reclaim when the guy paid the money back.
Very hard because that loan's finished.
Yeah. Well, that's the other way of looking at it. Yeah. Okay. That's what. So that's exactly. Look at the next line. Odilma is the other side, or perhaps who cares? Basically, at the end of the day, he's admitted that he paid it off. He's admitted the borrower paid off the debt. Right? The we hold that a document that you've used to borrow money with, and that document has been paid back, and that loan has been paid off. So you have a star which says you owe me £100 and you paid back £100. You can never use that document again. Finished. Put it in the bin. Because the shibud, that means to say the commitment, literally the enslavement, the shibud was really the ability that you have to claim, for example, from the borrower's whatever different things you can claim. You can claim the borrower's land. You can claim people who borrow, subsequent creditors and all that type of stuff. Right? The shiva that you've got, basically what's the right word in English? The lien, no, L-I-N-E-N.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the right word, right? Over him, right, has gone. The moment he pays back that loan, right, that right that this document gives you over his property as a creditor is finished. It's a piece of pottery. It's nothing. It's worthless. It's gone. And therefore, the reason why the Rashbam here, obviously, Abai is going to throw it back and say that it is exactly the same as the previous case. But the Rashbam here is explaining why Rabbi Birnbaum asked the question at all. Rabbi Birnbaum, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Why would he ask the question? It's the same as the previous case. You're coming with a fake document, right? Effectively a useless document, and you're trying to claim the money. Well, we say then. You can't do that because then we say wherever the money is, it's where it stays. The answer is no, because here is a bit better than the previous case. In the previous case, it was a completely forged document that was nothing to do with this loan. It was a shtar amona, we said, or maybe it was just a completely forged. The Adim were forged. We went through the all different stuff. Here, this was a document which was completely kosher, and it was about a loan and that had taken place between the same two parties. It's just that they've been used in the meantime. They had already been used. He's already paid it back, and now he wanted to claim with it again because the guy had borrowed the money again. Yeah. So that's what his question was. Is it the same? Is it the same or is it the same or not? I mean, here, presumably, I'm just thinking this through. It is. It's not really a migoy here, is it? Is there really a mig? What would be the mig? Why would he have lied? There's not really a malo shaka here, is there? Because he could have. What could he have done otherwise? We say, why should he lie? He couldn't. Well, yeah, there isn't one here. There isn't one here.
That was the real document, but it would have been disproved.
Yeah, he couldn't have said. No, maybe he could have. No, he could have. He could have.
So that is the document.
Yeah, no, he could, exactly. Yes, of course. That must be the same. It's the same. It's also the same Marlon Shak, same thing. let's say he didn't say the guy again. Let's go through the sequence of events. You have a person who you have three people here. You have the lender, the borrower, and the guarantor, right? And the lender, right? The lender obviously wants his money back, and the guarantor pays the debt back to the lender, right? The guarantor then goes to the borrower and says, "Here's the document which I got back from the lender, which shows that I paid back the £100 because obviously that's why he gave it to me, and now you owe me £100, right?" At that point, the borrower says, "Yeah, it's true, but I paid you already." Now he's got a choice at that point. He can do one of two things. He can deny it and say, "No, you never paid me back," in which case he's going to for sure win. You disagree? Well, the borrower's got nothing. He's got no evidence other than his own word. So obviously, if I've got a document which says you owe me £100, which is effectively what this document does, because it was the one I got from the lender when I paid the debt back, right? Then if I come to you and I've got a shtar that says you owe me £100, which effectively it does, and you deny it, well, who wins? The document wins, right? So, but he didn't do that. What he did was he admitted that he had indeed paid it back, but he said, "Then you borrowed it from me again, and I'm using this document because that's all I've got," which is basically say, why is he lying? We could have just used the claim. And instead, we should argue that he told the truth. And therefore it is the same. That's what, yes, it's exactly the same. And that's right. All the Rashbam does here is says why he's in a bit of a stronger position here, because it's not a document that is unrelated to this loan. The document is related, the shtar is related to this loan. It's just that the loan itself had already been paid back.
How can you argue that? The two loans are the same person, but they're not the same document.
No, that's right. And that's what Abai says. That's Abai's rejoinder. Look at the next Rashbam. Sholach le Abai. Abai sent back to him. You said to us that the halachas is like Rabbi Yosef when it comes to money. Now the Rashbam here explains that we now have been able to verify from this exchange what type of document we were talking about before. Shamina mihacha, we see from here the shara zayfa of Rabbi Yosef, that the forged document that Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef were talking about in the previous sugya, lav zayfa mamish, right? It's not completely forged, to sheker, because then that's a lie. The chizai v'kosav b'chai gavna, and when he forges it, writes it, in that case, l'divrei hakoil. 1 second, l'divrei hakoil. B'chai gavna l'divrei hakoil filo rabba possible. If he in that case, right? If he forges it, according to everyone, even according to Rabba, it's possible. Elakai gavna. The case is kagon shtar porua shenim chashebudu. The case when they had the whole machlokas beforehand was where it was a document that had been paid off. Shenim chashebudu. So because the document had already been paid off, yeah, therefore it no longer had any validity. It was an already paid back document. Or you could go, for example, shtar amona, like the first example brought in the Rashbam, a document which is given on trust, which is never shlenitzan likosev, which you're not supposed to write down. It was never, you can never actually claim with it. It's a document that's just on trust that you won't claim with it. And those type of scenarios, pligi Rabba Rav Yosef, those are the scenarios that Rabba and Rav Yosef had their debate. But by mashvile lahashtara, kishtar da'aybe Rabba Rav Yosef. And Abai says this document is the same as the ones they were talking about. But Amani says, given the moda ha'ore, since the guarantor agrees, he admits the ifra that it was paid off. Just that he went and re-borrowed, took the money back again. Even though the document is now in the hand of the guarantor, we do not obligate the borrower to pay, because he's admitted that it's effectively not on this loan. He's admitted that, the guarantor, and therefore we apply the principle of essentially, you want to come along with a big guy, and that's not going to allow you to take the money away from the borrower, right? Because you admitted that this document is not the right one. Okay, is not the right one, right? I mean, if you remember, the Rashbam went through this in detail before, that effectively Rav Yosef's logic is that it's like a migoy b'mokum eidin. Remember how the Rashbam explained that before? Because you've admitted that it was a forged document, so therefore the migoy is now trying to climb a mountain. you've got a logical argument. Why would you lie? And therefore we should believe you that you're telling the truth. You just admitted that this document is false. So it's now that's what we call a migoy b'mokum edim. There are edim against you, right? That it's possible. Okay, that it's possible. You've agreed that it's possible. That's like 100 edim against you, and therefore that's why you are finished. And that's why we don't allow you to claim with it. And he says, "Came Pirush Rabbeinu Chananel." That's Rabbeinu Chananel explains this. The Rashbam himself says, "It would seem to me that the same logic would apply even if it was completely forged." So there's a bit of a side train that Rashbam has done here. All he's done is he's tried to prove. He says Rabbeinu Chananel wants to prove from this sugya that because Abai equates this with this, it means both of them were talking in similar contexts where it wasn't a totally forged star. It was just a star that wasn't on this loan or on this arrangement, etc., right? The Rashbam says it makes no difference. The Rashbam himself says it makes no difference. At the end of the day, the document's no good for this loan. So who cares? Exactly. Who cares? Exactly right. That's right. And therefore that's how he passes it, right?
Surely, the minute you don't have the document, you're getting very pshara-like in terms of trying to make a connection between what it does and what it does and doesn't.
No. Well, if you don't have a document,
That's it,
no, but what do you do now?
then you can't prove your claim if you want to say Hamas and Chaver. I mean, it's very.
Because you can't prove your claim, what do you do? Because you can't prove your claim, what do you do? Put it back on again, it won't get cold. Sorry, press it on. We'll survive for a bit.
The minute you can't prove your claim,
No, you can't feel anyway. What did he say? Because you can't prove your claim. Huh?
The minute you can't prove your claim, it gets struck out.
Right. I know what to do. If I move up here, okay. No, but when you get struck out, it's okay that it blows that way. If you can't prove your claim, yeah.
If you can't prove your claim, you get that.
Right. Then you're finished. Exactly.
There's just a whole bunch of other possibilities that are examined, and it all strikes me as very pshara-like in terms of you can't really prove the claim, but you're sort of going on what Migu and.
What do you mean a pshara? It's not a pshara.
It's not pshara in the conventional sense, but.
Huh?
It seems quite obvious, not sure.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying to
You mean it's obvious?
Yeah, the Haberman doesn't make sense.
The Haber doesn't make sense. So
Because it's the principle is quite simple.
right.
You either got a document or you haven't got a
Well, you
document.
don't.
Right.
In this case, you haven't got a document.
Right. But
You're showing other
Yeah.
possibilities,
the thing is that
which I'm querying
it's
because-
true that you don't have a star, but what you do have is a logical argument in your favor, right? There's a reason to assume that you're telling the truth because you could have got away with it. So that's the other tzad, and that's why if you have a smaller hill to climb, for example, the first case, when you're sitting in the land, so the hill is smaller to climb, the bar you have to cross is lower. Do you understand why? Because actually I'm here now and you're trying to get it away from me. And therefore you're in a stronger position. And therefore that's why that's the argument. That's basically where it is. But the Gemora has a few more lines, and Gemora just qualifies this a little bit. Where do we say that you go after where the money is? V'hani mili, says the Gemara, to amalei hodarta zaftinu minoi. He says to him, you re-borrowed the money from me. Aval amalei, but if he says to him, hodartinu ni aleich, okay? In other words, this all only applies when he says, you re-borrowed them from me again. Now that's the claim of the guarantor. The claim of the guarantor is that it was re-borrowed again. Yeah, it was re-borrowed again, right? Leave it. Yeah, it was re-borrowed again, right? But if he says back to him, if he says I return it back to you because the money was just dodgy coins, so I gave it back to you because because the coins were bad. In other words, you paid me back, but the currency wasn't good. The king's head had been rubbed out, or it was forgeries, or whatever it was, right? In that case, then it's obvious that I can still claim. Obviously, the Oriv is believed because because the shibud of the star is still here. then there's nothing to talk about. You understand? Because the the commitment of the loan of the document is still present. Yeah. Look at the last few lines of the Rashbam. The Kaposi Gemora of Ozil, the Gemora Paskins. It goes on to Paskin.
Just saying, in the situation where you give coins back for free, give the money back for whatever reason, he didn't claim a receipt, nothing, it's all done.
Because it's the same loan.
Same loan.
I
Exactly.
think it's about loan number 2.
No, there is only one loan. That's look at Rashbam. Take him. Where do we say that wherever the money is, that's where it stays? And the borrower is not obligated to pay back to the guarantor. That is that is where the guarantor claims, as we said above, Da'ama Pratinu. He says where he says you pay me back. I will hold the Aftinu. But after that, you re-borrowed it from me. Right? Yosef means to borrow. The guarantor himself admits that this document has been used already and therefore is basically now irrelevant, right? And he admits to that. But if the guarantor claims, you telling me that you pay me back? No, you pay me back, but I gave that money back. I refused to accept it. Which means Nishrav Tzuroson. The king's head was rubbed out. The image on it, the coin was rubbed out. And they were unusable. It wasn't valid currency. Someone who erases the coin of his friend. They used to have this thing called coin clipping. Similar thing. That was a bit different. They tried to shave bits of the side of the coin off. Yeah, because they could use it to sell. Here, basically, the coin is not usable currency because the images are become erased on the coin, right? The sumki, herdim, the choshton, basically, the Yosemite become too rusty. Basically, he hasn't paid him back. Therefore, the commitment of the debt is still here. It's as if he's claiming that you never pay me back. That is basically what he's saying. You understand? So this is just a little qualification, which is relatively straightforward, effectively. The Gemara just says that obviously this whole thing only applies when the borrower, either the lender in the first case, or in our case, the guarantor, admits that the document is not useful for this loan, even if it was good for a previous one, right? But if he doesn't do that, and he just says, actually, it's true you pay me back, but I gave you the coins back because they were no good, then obviously the document is still 100%. It's still on this loan. You with me? So then, therefore, obviously it's still useful, and therefore there's no longer a cheshbon of how can you rely on a migoy to take money away. I'm not relying on a migoy to take money away. I'm coming along with a loan document, and therefore obviously it's mine. Make sense? Right. That's it. Okay, good. Right. Now we have a new case. Yeah. So Rava Bar Shirshim. Rava Bar Shirshim is an Amora, and surprisingly, incredibly surprisingly, Nofik, as we'll see, Nofik Ale Kala, the Ka'achel Arad Yasin. There was a coil, which is basically a rumor, at least that's what it Rashbam says, as we'll see. It was a coil shel edus emes. It's not like we saw before. The word coil, although it sounds like a rumor, can actually be just like we had before. It can be something which is more than a rumor, and it's basically I think actually why we used it as a rumor. I think. Oh, we talked about kol psul. Just one second. Oh no, there we saw over it. So that's something else. Anyway, we'll see. Here, basically, there was Rashbam says kol shel edus emes. So true. It was a true testimony that the ka'achel arad yasmin, that he was busy consuming the land which belonged to Yisomim, belonged to orphans. That's a very surprising thing for Rav Shishim to do. Why would he be using produce growing on the land belonging to Yisomim? So obviously Abai challenged him. Abai said to him, tell me what's going on. He told me, tell me the story. What is the scenario? What is the case? How can it be that you, the great Rav Shishim, is busy gobbling up the cabbages growing on the land of the Yisomim? Amalei said to him, it's very simple. He says, what happened was, I had land from the father of these orphans, right? And it was what's called a mashkanta de surah, a mashkanta which was used in the surah, which is based in Bovel. And this type of mashkanta is a mortgage. In modern Hebrew, it's a mortgage. In modern Hebrew, it's a mortgage, mashkanta. But here, it basically means like a mashkanta is like a pledge. In other words, what? It's a pledge. In other words, it's basically the deal is that I lend you money, right? And you get to hold on to this pledge. Now, normal pledge, you just hold on to it. And if I don't pay you back, I keep it, right? A mashkanta de surah is different. A mashkanta de surah is basically, I've got a plot of land that's yours. And until you pay me back, I'm allowed to use up the land. I'm allowed to work the land, benefit from the land. And then once the number of years of the loan are up, you take the land back and you've paid your debt. No, because it's worked out to be the value of the money you owe. So not necessarily. I mean, I think you're right. Not right. I think if my memory shows correctly, I can't remember some number of years to say that, but no, less than 7. Last time I was that was very fast. But I think it's probably discussed. I think Ribbis is discussed at how it works with Ribbis and how you get it right. But technically, it's not Ribbis because you owe me £500, and I just benefit £500 worth from your land. Yeah, that's that. In a nutshell, that's how it works, right? Okay, so what happened was like this. I had the land, he said, but mashkunta, in this type of mashkun, me'avuon dias, from the father of these orphans. But I had other money. There was another debt that he owed me. Okay, so the father of these orphans owed me 2 debts. Number one, he owed me a debt that I had land from. There was this mashkanta to surah deal. In other words, he owed me money, and I was going to work the land, and that was going to that's how I was going to pay off the debt. But there was more money. He owed me another debt as well. And I basically consumed the land for 3 years. Which also we also see was the years of 3 years chazaka as well. But basically, I consumed the land, I worked the land for the years of the mashkanta, which I was entitled to do for that debt. Now, this is the issue, the first one. And Rabbi Birnbaum is now explaining what he did. He says, now I've got a problem, because if I now, after the father's dead, if I now give it back, what's going to happen? If I give the land back now, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm going to have to make a shua, because that's the halacha. The halacha is right? Yeah, you always have to make an oath. You have to make a shua. Not a simple thing. You have to make a shua because they can't defend themselves, right? So you got to understand the picture here. Rabbi Birnbaum is holding on to this land. He's finished up the debt that he was owed and which he was entitled to benefit from the land from. And now he's got a dilemma. His dilemma is like this. Really, he should give the land back because that's the deal, right? But he knows that the father of Yisrael owed him another £500. And he says to himself like this: if I give the land back, I'm going to have to run after Yisomim now because the guy's dead. And if I go after Yisomim, I'm going to have to start making shvuas, all sorts of difficult, complicated things. Well, no, one complicated thing is shvua. I don't want to make a shvua, he says. People don't like making shvuas. And therefore he said like this: Amino, I said, Imahadrano lay. I think he skips out. I think he skip out the box. Yeah, skip out the law. Imahadrana arali yasmi. If I return the land to the orphans, Amino, and I say, Isli zuzi achrini gabi avuchai, but I've got other money with your father. Omer Rabbanon, the Rabbanon say, somebody wants to claim money from Yisomim can only claim the money with a shvua. So therefore I said to myself, what I'll do is I will just hide the document which says that this land was only in my possession as a mashkanta, because obviously the first loan was all documented. You're not going to give away your land to a person you owe money to. The father is not stupid. He's not going to give away his land, right? You with me? Without it all being signed on the. It's not going to be documented that this land. That's what Mashkanta de Surah is. There's a signed document which says you're allowed to use this land for 3 years or whatever, and after that, because that's the amount of the debt, and after that I get it back. So Rabbi Shishim said, I'm going to hide that shtar, the shtar mashkanta biyodi. Are you with me? Yeah, you with me? Yeah. I'm going to hide that document. Va'oichla shir zuzi, and I'm going to simply keep hold of the land until I've made up the other £500. You understand? Which bit of it? Last bit. So basically, Rabbi Bar Shishim is explaining his actions, and he's saying they had a problem. The problem was that he was owed another £500, a second debt. So he decided to do. He said like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the document shtar, which says that the only way that my only zchus to the land was because of the first debt. We call it mashkanta de surah. It was a debt, right? And I'm going to keep eating it. Now you're going to say to me, I'm going to keep using it, and by that time I'll make up the other debt. Now you're going to say to me, which I think is what your problem is, David. Listen, I'm telling you what your problem is, but is that but no one's going to believe you. Who's going to believe him? Everyone knows this was the other guy's land, the father's land. Who's going to believe him? How has he helped himself? So he carries on. Had I said I bought it, I would be believed. When I say so when I say that I've got money, and that's why I'm using it, because it's not mine, it's yours, but I've got money that your father owed me, and that's why I've been using it, I'll also be believed. Because he's hiding the shtar mashkanta, you've now got a situation where he's been 3 years in the land. He's been 3 years in the land, because that's the case. He's been working the land for 3 years. So he is untouchable. Why? Chazaka. So he could claim chazaka. He could say, L'kuchi biyodi, I bought it from your father. Who's going to challenge him? No one's going to be able to challenge him on that. And therefore he's got a migo. Migo, he could have said it was his. And therefore he'll be believed when he says the truth, which is, it's not mine, but your father owed me a debt. And that's how he's going to get around making a shua. It sounds a bit like, but one? Yes, that's the problem, which we should talk about, because it's still a problem. I think they still talk about that, right? It's just,
the argument of Chazaka can always be applied.
go on.
Well, anybody told you can always do it.
With the mashkanta de surah, yeah.
Yeah, you said I worked for 3 years. But
Yeah.
Well, why have to pay swimming in any case?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair point that a person could always try and do this. So the question is, how would you get around? How would you there must be a way of preventing this. Yeah. There must be someone must have thought of that, right? I mean, we're someone it can't be the yeah. Okay, we'll have to think about that, I think, because it's true. There must be a way. They're going to be saying anyone can do that. We don't assume people are deceitful.
Presumably, there's a loan document somewhere.
A loan document. No, that's the mashkanta, sir. That's the document.
No, for the other loan.
Oh. No, I think it's all contained within the same document. The mashkanta de surah is a shtar.
But that was only for the first loan.
Yes. The original owners will have an ownership document on the land. They will.
So then his argument isn't that it's not that powerful. It's not say.
But he's still got. No, but he's saying they have a document which says our father used to own the land, right? And they say to him, it's not your land, it's ours. And you've got you just took out his mashkanta. And he says, what mashkanta? He says, I've been here 3 years and I bought it from your father. And no one would be able to disprove that. Yeah, that's right. So your question is, any person who has this type of mashkanta de surah, right, is able to use this argument and say, yeah, so I've got chazak. The question is, how do we prevent that?
Because he needs a claim as well. He can't just have a chazak.
No, but he's got a claim. His claim is he bought it from you.
No, but he's only got mashkanta, which is not a document of sale.
That's true. But Yossi's question is not this case with Yusomim. But in any case, where a person who's been 3 years in property on the basis of it being a mashkanta, this mashkanta d'sura, could turn around at the end of the 3 years, hide the document and say, this land is mine, and I bought it from you, and I've used it for 3 years, and I had a chazaka for 3 years. And how would he be challenged?
'Cause he would need aid, surely,
Why?
because chazaka on its own is not enough to prove ownership.
So,
You have to have a chazaka plus.
well, I don't know if you need chazaka plus. I think it could be that it's solved by the way the Gemora answers. It could be the way this is solved by the way Abaye responds to Rav Bar Shirshim. Again, let's see. Rav Bar Shirshim here has responded to Abaye's claim. Abaye said to him, "What's going on? This is not great. You're one of the team, one of the Amiroim, and there's this rumor going out about you that you're busy gobbling up land belonging to Yisomim. So what's going on?" So he gives him his chance to defend himself. And Rav Bar Shirshim explains this convoluted and complicated story as to why he's acted the way he has acted. But Abaye says, this is no good. Look what Abaye says. Amalei, he said to him like this, you'd never be able to say that you bought it. You could never make that claim. Because there's a coil. It's known, it's public knowledge that it belongs to the Yisomim. You could never say that you bought it. Everyone knows that you entered this land as a mashkanta, and therefore you're never able to say I bought it. It's not an option. Everyone knows that it belongs to the Yisomim because now those years of mashkanta are finished. The only thing you can do is give the land back to them. And when they grow up, you can start talking to them, and you can take them to court, and you can have it out with them about the second debt that you say their father owes you. You have to wait till they're grown up. There's nothing you can do about it. That's what Abaye says. So the question is, there's a long Rashbam here. We probably won't have time for all of it today, but the Rashbam here, I think, goes into this in detail as to why it is that the migoy is not useful here, and why he cannot say that it was lukucha biyodi, was not able to say it was bought in my hand. So once we've done that, we'll have to see whether this still resolves other cases where he could potentially make this claim and say, right, and there's mashkanta to serve. Let's see at least start the Rashbam. So it's the last 3 lines of the previous Amud. Rav Bar Shirshim, Rav Bar Shirshim, there was a coil about him. There was a rumor that he was using the land of the Yisomim. Is explaining to it was as a Damashkan with him, that the years of the Mashkanta were completed. And therefore, now there was a coil, there was a rumor shel edus emes of true edus. That from now onwards he was consuming the land of the Yisomim, and it's called kol shel edus emes because it was true, and it was true, and it's manifestly true, and he's not denying that, as we'll see, right? He's got a whole. That's why he's got a whole. You see, the Rashbam has to say that this was not just a rumor, because if it was just a rumor, you could get into a whole question. Could he deny? It's not deniable. Everyone agrees that he was now using and eating fruits or apples that are growing on trees belonging to Yisomim, right? The only question is, has he got a justifiable reason for doing so, such as he's owed money, right? Yossi, you don't think so?
No, it wasn't there as owner.
Yeah.
Claiming.
Yeah. That's yes. Well, effectively, that's right. That's Abaye's response, and therefore the question is, which is what Tosfos deals with, I think, is so what did Rav Bar Shirshim think? No, that's public knowledge. Yeah, that he only was in this land because he was owed money, and that was the deal. It was a mashkanta, and the deal was that he gets to consume the fruit as payment for the loan. Everyone knows that's the deal.
You're saying that it's not just that he's on the land, but they don't know why he's on the land.
No, they do.
Well, then right.
That's right. And therefore the question is, what was going through Rav Bar Shirshim's mind? How did he exactly? Which is what I think. Yeah, exactly. I think Tosfos deals with that. Let's just see let's see the next line, bottom line of the Omid. Mashkanta gab, right? Gaboy me'avuin hava. Mashkanta d'sura. This land was as a mashkanta from their father, as a mashkanta d'sura. What is a mashkanta d'sura? The Kosvi Hochi, they wrote the following. B'mishalem shnai elain. This is what was written in this document with these type of mashkantas. In the completion of these years, Tepuk arador below kesef. This land should go out without any money, right? But in other words, that's it. You paid off the debt. You paid off the debt. But and in the days of their father, in the time of their father, he consumed it, right? Or I consumed it. He's talking. I was on the land for 3 years, basically, right? So in other words, the case is, Rabbi Birnbaum says, for the last 3 years of your father's life, I was working this land, right? And I was using the fruit as per the agreement, which was the mashkanta d'sura. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, what?
Which carries more weight.
Of what? Than what?
The mashkanta d'sura.
Well, everyone,
Or the chazaka.
no, it's not quite, no, you would never assume he would try and argue chazak. Remember, he's not really. No, he doesn't, because everyone knows that his original claim to the land was only as a mashkanta. His argument that he's going to make is that once the father's dead, or maybe even before, he could hide the shtar mashkanta and then claim chazak. And that's what Abai challenged them and says, you'd never be able to hide the shtar because everyone knows. Forget about the shtar. Everyone knows you were only there as a mashkanta, right? But the argument is that he was on the land for 3 years chazaka. The 3 years chazaka is kind of irrelevant because he's not really claiming chazaka. It's only a question of whether he can use it as a leverage for a migo. That's really what he's interested in for. Ultimately, he used it for 3 years while the father was alive as mashkanta. By the way, it is the same as the modern Hebrew equivalent. No, it's a mortgage. Well, a mortgage is effectively it's a charge against the land, and that means that it's an agreement that when you've finished X number of years and you finish paying it off, then the charge is released. I mean, it's the same idea. Here it's the other way around, really. You say, when you finish using this property, then I paid off my debt, and that means that's it, basically. Yeah, I get it back. Anyway, the next top of the next one, and there was other money. There was other money with him. He owed me another debt. That was Rabbi Birnbaum said the case was. There was no mashkan on that money. For Omri, and I said, I said to myself like this, says Rabbi Birnbaum, after the years of mashkanta finished, if I return the land now to the orphans, and I request the debt that I have, the second debt, from their father, I'm going to have to make a shvua. And even though there is in my hand a shtar, which says that he owes me money, I will still have to make a shvua. Now, why does Rosh Hashanah add that? Why does Rosh Hashanah add that? Yeah, why does Rosh Hashanah add, even though I've got a shtar chov, I've got a loan document, I will still have to make a shvua? Because Rosh Hashanah are trying to answer a question that you will have here, which is, but normally, a normal loan is not done without documentation. If your father owed me £500, I'm going to have a document to prove the £500. Okay, so the case.
Why do you have to make a shvur on top of that then?
That's exactly the point. The only way we can understand what he's worried about, Rabbi Birnbaum, is, and that's why the Gemora spells it out this way, it would seem, that what bothers him is the shvur, is the fact that even if you've got a document, if you come to claim a debt after a person has passed away, and you claim that debt from their descendants, from the Yisomim, you have to make a shvur, even if you've got a document. It's not going to help you. That's the rule. Mashkanta d'sura is different because Mashkanta d'sura was in the lifetime of the father. That's the case.
But it continues up.
No, but it was finished. It was finished, I think. Yeah, that's what it seems to imply. It seems to imply, it says, that's what the Rosh Hashanah says. So I don't think, I think it was already, it's a good, it seems to be, the scenario seems to be that had already been dealt with, that the using of the land for that first debt, right?
There was still an outstanding amount.
Yeah, you'd ask, maybe you have to make a shvua now. I'm not sure you would have to, because it's not really a bole paris. It's a continual, I'm not sure. It might be a continuous usage of the land in that way. But either way, I think the scenario is that that's already done. That's already done. I think so. So what did he say? I'm going to hide it. I'll hide the document so that I can say that it's just bought. Because I used it for 3 years chazaka in the father's life, so no one will be able to challenge me. I'd hide the document, and then I could claim it was mine. Okay, and therefore, since I would be believed then, I should also be believed when I say that actually, since I would be believed, since I could hide the document and claim that it was mine, and that I bought it, and I had chazaka, I should also be believed that when I say that your father owed me another £500, below shvua, I should be believed without an oath, without a shvua. Because you don't make a shvua on karkos, on land, and furthermore, the cheskas shalosh b'mokum shtar kaimo. And furthermore, the chazaka of 3 years is in a place of the shtar. That's what the chazaka of 3 years effectively should achieve. This is a bit of a complicated Rashbam, so we will, Mitzvah Hashem, do this small one again, and the next longer one, which is the last piece, which is Abaya's response to him. We will continue that next week. Mitzvah Hashem. So it's finished in the middle, but we'll recap it next week. All right.
Apologies for not being.
Okay. No. Thanks for making it on Zoom. Take care. Have a good evening.